Good evening and welcome to another episode of the State of Scottish Football podcast. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, you name it. We are live talking about all the major topics in Scottish football. To the left of me this evening is my Aberdonian pal and absolute legend of Scottish football, David Smith. David, warm welcome to the show. How are you doing, my good man?
Yeah, very well, thanks very much. I've got a bit of a headache. I'll explain why, because I've had gas works up the stairs. Unwarned, by the way. 7 o'clock this morning, bang, bang, bang. So here we are, headache, and ready to go, ready to rock and roll with your fine self.
Well, hopefully it won't be too big a pain for you tonight, and hopefully you'll be able to be switched on, I'm sure. Remember, you can put your comments into the show, and we'll be talking about all the major topics throughout the evening. Just message us at the State of Scottish Football. We have plenty to discuss tonight, but David, there is only one place to start, and it is, of course, the build-up to the Europa League Matchday 2 fixtures this week. Celtic and Rangers both lost their opening matches in their Europa League groups. Celtic, of course, lost 4-2 against Real Betis, while Rangers came unstuck 2-0 by French side Olympique Lyonnais. How big a Matchday 2 is it for both sides?
I think it's massive for both, Grant. I mean, Matchday 1 isn't going to decide or designate where you're going to finish or how it's going to shape up, and both sides have the luxury of the fact that there is a Conference League, so they are guaranteed European football still after Christmas. But irrespective, Grant, you want to be going as high as you possibly can. I've alluded to it in this show previously that the likes of Rangers will be disappointed with their Champions League exploits because they're playing Malmo. And yeah, Malmo went to the Champions League and they're playing the Heights Chelsea and Juventus. And that's absolutely brilliant for Malmo, don't get me wrong. But from a Rangers point of view, it was very disappointing over the 2 legs. And it meant Europa League football. Steven Gerrard has been targeting high. And for Celtic, they did well in Europe, but they got an almighty scare in Alkmaar. And I must say, Grant, that form heading in this game isn't exactly ideal from either side's point of view as well, because I mean, Rangers did very well to win at Dundee on Saturday, but I was at the game and they weren't exactly playing sailing by any stretch of imagination. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't a dangerous Rangers side by any stretch. They worked hard to get the 3 points, and it was just a case of stepping over the line and getting the 3 points. So it was a good victory from Rangers' point of view. But heading into tomorrow night's game against Sparta Prague, that's going to be a tough assignment for Rangers, and we'll get into more detail as the show progresses. But on to Celtic, they've got another hard game, and form in domestic terms hasn't been pretty. I mean, it was a disappointing job with Dundee United on Sunday, and obviously that defeat against Livingston. So obviously there's a lot to worry about for Ange Postecoglou's side, and I'll be honest by saying I didn't read much into the press conferences for Gerrard and Postecoglou, but having read wee snippets from newspapers and online, it seemed that the journalists were kind of snapping at Gerrard and Postecoglou, which is understandable. I'm a journalist myself, so I don't like to see the overall snapping managers at this stage of the season, because these managers deserve, well, Gerrard's been in the job for a long time, but Postecoglou deserves time. And if we're going to be biting him after 6 weeks, then there's a major issue as far as I'm concerned, because I don't think, from a Celtic point of view, I don't think Postecoglou's the wrong answer here. I think it's more the fact that Celtic, panic's not the right word, but I can't remember the better word, but Celtic took in a manager just before everything kicked off, European domestic football, and Ange Postecoglou was left to pick up all the pieces. He's recruited well, but results-wise, and it is a results-driven business, hasn't been ideal in the last few weeks or so.
Well, let's discuss the Rangers game first, because you obviously were at Dens at the weekend, David. I mean, Sparta Prague are familiar foes to Scottish football. Celtic fans will, of course, know them very well. They won 4-1 in both games, didn't they, in the Celtics group last time out? I mean, Rangers need to put in a performance, but Sparta Prague have previous over Scottish clubs, and this is a very tough game because they lost their first game at Ibrox. They need to find a response.
Yeah, after losing their opening group match against Lyon, Grant, a positive result would go a long way in terms of boosting Rangers' qualification from the Europa League, because, I mean, Rangers have done very well in European football, but, I mean, the Lyon defeat a couple weeks ago would have been bitterly disappointed for Steven Gerrard's side, and they didn't show up at all that night. I don't know if, by the way, I must say, I don't know if Andy Kaufman is on about my bedroom or your bedroom, Grant, but he's trying to explain that either of our bedrooms looks like Ibrox. So whatever it was, thanks for the compliment.
Must be yours.
It must be mine. It must be mine. But yeah, Prague's always a tough place to go. I mean, Rangers have experienced this over the last few years, whether that's indeed Slavia or Sparta. I mean, they're playing Sparta this time around. But I think we need a more diligent defensive approach from Rangers tomorrow night, just on the basis of Rangers have been a little bit open at the back, and if it wasn't for John McLaughlin, Dundee would have scored on Saturday. And they maybe picked up a clean sheet at just the right moment, in my honest opinion, because they were up against a misfiring Dundee side at the weekend, and a Jason Cummings who has had COVID, and all the very best to Jason Cummings in his health, because health is paramount. And also, Leigh Griffiths hasn't scored since arriving at the club, and from a Leigh Griffiths point of view, I didn't want to say this to you last Thursday night evening, Grant, because I felt it would have been a bit unjustifiable. But the amount of stick he got from Rangers fans on Saturday afternoon is uncalled for. I'm going to use this platform to tell you this right now. What was said to Leigh Griffiths on Saturday afternoon for the 38 minutes he was on that park is unjustifiable. But back on the original point, obviously, a big game for Rangers tomorrow night, and this is not an environment for the faint-hearted. This is a game where Rangers have to battle. Simple as that. They battled and got the win at Dundee on Saturday, and football done to Rangers for doing that. And this is a game that Steven Gerrard has to go for a tried and trusted approach, not the process where he tries to experiment. He needs to try and trusted approach tomorrow night, in my honest opinion. And at the back, you expect all the big hitters to return. Joel Lundstrom has got fair criticism, but he was one of the best players. He was one of the best players in a Rangers shirt on the weekend at Dundee there. He did very well. And he's had a sticky start, but his power and muscularity will be key to this type of match, because Sparta Prague are quite a physical type of side, and it is one of them games where you do need to nip and grind in order to go and get a result of this magnitude. It was the same when Rangers played Slavia last year, especially over in the Czechs, because I mean Rangers had to battle. I mean, it wasn't exactly a pretty game. It was a pretty game because there was plenty of goals in the game, but it wasn't exactly a game where defences were shut up shop. It was an open, high-scoring game, and it was probably one of the games of the season when you think about it in the end. One player that you'd like to see play tomorrow night is perhaps Fashion Sakala. He can make an appearance given how important his scene and pace could be in a counter-attack for Rangers, and that could be very important for Steven Gerrard's side tomorrow night. And also with Ryan Kent out there for 4 weeks, there's Zambian is the obvious selection, and Rangers always have an out ball to hit. And Gant, can I give you my prediction for the team?
Yeah, you can do.
I'm going to go for McGregor in goals. I think Rangers are going to use McGregor more for the European games. I mean, whether McLaughlin's going to be number one or not is up to the Rangers fans. I mean, he did enough to obviously promote himself into the Scotland setup as of yesterday, and he kicked the clean sheet at Dundee in the weekend, which was a huge positive from John McLaughlin's point of view. But I think McGregor will start in goals, and the rest of the team will set itself up as Tavernier, Barisic, Goldson, Balogun, Lundstrom, Davis, Kamara, Aribo, Sakala, and Bareilles.
I think Barisic will play. That's interesting, because I think Bassey might play. Barisic has had a poor start to the season for Rangers, in my opinion. I know Gerrard trusts him in Europe, to be fair to you, but I think you go with players that are playing in good form. And I know I'm going to kind of contradict myself when I come on to the point about Sakala, but I think Morelos starts tomorrow night because Steven Gerrard trusts Morelos in Europe. He knows where the net is in Europe. And Sakala, not really seen too much of him, really, to kind of say, why does he deserve his chance ahead of Morelos? I can understand the pace argument, but you want guys that are proven and tested at this level in Europe. And, I personally think he'll go Morelos tomorrow night. But I think Bassey will play. Why do you think Tavernier will play, not Patterson?
Good question, but I mean, Tavernier's been informed for Rangers. I mean, he's been doing very well for himself, and Patterson's need to pick up the pieces a little bit in this Rangers side. But on to your point regarding Barisic and Bassey, Bassey's been doing really well for himself, and he had another good game at the weekend there, as he did last Wednesday against Livingston in the Premier Sports Cup. But tomorrow night it's probably just the right game for Barisic to come back, in my honest opinion. Yeah, he's not had the start to the season that he'd have liked, but from a Barisic point of view, this is the type of game that he would like. This is the type of game that he'd be accustomed to. And being honest with you, I think it's the safer Tavernier. And as much as Bassett and Patterson are more attack-minded players, and I thoroughly understand that, I do feel that Rangers need to shut shop at the back, and Rangers are open. You've seen that the weekend. I'll allude to it again. Paul McMillan is a tricky player, and he got the better of Goldson at the weekend to win the penalty there for Rangers when McLaughlin taking the player down. Could it have been a red? Possibly, but the rule book suggests it's a yellow card.
I think by the letter of the law, he just about got it right, Bobby Madden. But if he'd seen a red card, I don't think many would have complained. I don't think the goalkeeper would have complained. But by the letter of the law, I think he just about got it right.
Well, I'm going to source Sky Sports here for a minute, Grant. Dan McGallagher was speaking about this particular decision on Monday morning, and he was asked a question regarding Shane McLaughlin seeing as much in orders in this specific game. If it had been at waist height, Dermot said, he'd have been off. But because it wasn't, yellow.
Interesting. Imagine it being as typical as that. What about your midfield dynamics, David? You were going through your projected team. How do you think the midfield will line up tomorrow night? Because Lundstrom, you mentioned, has had a bit of an up and down start. Aribo scored the goal the weekend. Are we going to see more of him? I think Stephen Davis selects himself because of his European experience. What do you think?
Davis was on the bench at the weekend, and I think that's the reason why. I think it's just swap back in again tomorrow night. I can see Rangers go for free, if I'm being honest. I would like to see Rangers playing, your four at the back, and then going for Lundstrom, Davis, and Kamara in the midfield, and then your three strikers being Aribo, Sakala, and Morelos. Now, you might ask the question, what does Sakala offer that Hadji doesn't? Very good question, but I think what you get out of Hadji is he offers you a threat or an instinct which the Sparta Prague defence won't be able to offer, and that could be a massive.
Really made the David Tanner blunder there.
Sorry, got what?
I'm saying you nearly made the David Tanner blunder earlier.
Yeah, I know.
Will know that gag. Anyway, go on.
I was doing first, but. I feel that if you start Sakala, he's very good with his searing pace in the counter-attack, as I alluded to, and that could be a positive. But then also, when the game's tiring out and when the game needs open and expansive, you've got the likes of Hadji that can go on, spread the game about, try and create some opportunities for Morelos. I mean, Morelos did very, very well the weekend because Rangers, as an attacking setup, irrespective of Hadji and Kent, Kent to an extent, they've been misfiring a little bit. I mean, Morelos has, you probably agree with me here, Morelos has been having good opportunities, but just been doing very little in front of goal. But I mean, that's 2 goals and 1 assist in the past 7 days, which will do his confidence to all the good. Yeah,
absolutely. I think Rangers will have to certainly come out, I think, and definitely take something from the game, because if they want to pick up any points, they've got the double header with Brøndby afterwards. Of course, Sparta did draw 0-0 with Brøndby in their opening match. Just having a look at Sparta Prague's form, David. There's a really good piece on the BBC Scotland website. They won 5-2 against Zlín on Saturday. Apologies to my Czech people watching this if my Czech isn't particularly good. They 5-2 victory at Zlín, and then obviously lost 3-2 against Pilsen early in the month. It's their only domestic defeat, but of course they have had some pretty good results. Up until then, they had won 5 of their opening 6 games, scoring 16 goals. But they, as I said, lost to Pilsen. And they did draw with Celtic's foes, Jablonec. So does this give Rangers a bit of hope going into this game? Their form is a little bit sketchy at the moment.
I think so. I think you look at this in 2 ways and going to look at the sketchy things and go and saying Rangers have a terrific opportunity here to pounce on that, because Sparta aren't exactly playing. Sparta aren't exactly. You get confused with the Sparta and Slavia. Sparta. It's a good job I've never mentioned Slavia yet. Sparta aren't exactly doing well, as you alluded to there, but there's also the other side to this where Rangers over the years have very much struggled in Czech Republic. Yeah, they might have went to the Czechs and went and won games, but there's an East country, East mentality that they're compact, they're tough, they're defensive, they're aggressive in their approach, and it makes it very hard for the your Scottish sides and even other sides that have went across the Czechs, such as your from your bigger countries, have went to the Czechs and struggled. So there's that as well. So Rangers have to be very vigilant heading tomorrow night, and if they can be vigilant but also doing things in the right way, I think they'll go and win the game. And there's a big argument with regards to Rangers have the spark to life this season. And this question was asked in the press conference today to Gerrard. And Gerrard stoutly defended his team from any notion that they are yet to spark to life this season because, and having watched it the weekend, they weren't exactly, as I alluded to, they weren't exactly pretty, they weren't exactly dangerous, but they got the job done. And that's a sign of their mentality at the moment that they're not playing well, and that's a sign of a good team because they're winning games 1-0. And that's Rangers compared to other teams other teams such as your Celtics aren't playing well or are playing well in stages, but still not picking up positive results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of interesting dynamics of how Rangers will approach the game. I mean, I was having a look at Sparta's team, and one guy that really jumps off the page is one of the brightest emerging talents in Europe, a guy called Adam Hlocek, who has scored 32 goals in 91 games for his club. He's also made 10 national appearances for the Czech Republic. I mean, when you have a player of that quality, David, Rangers are going to have to be very solid defensively if they're going to cut him out of the game because, this guy can score goals.
Yeah, well, back to your argument regarding Barisic or Barsi, this is why I feel Barisic needs to come in tomorrow night for me because, I mean, you've got a left-back there that's tough, aggressive in his approach, whilst Barsi is a little bit more underdeveloped in the defensive side of the game. He's a bit like Patch. They're both very good at getting forward, but the both of them can defend. Don't get me wrong, can defend, but have lack a bit of steeliness for me. And that's why I would play Tavernier and Barisic, just because there's a balance there.
Yeah. I mean, another interesting person, of course, that Celtic fans will know is, of course, the top scorer, Lucas Ulis, who netted 5 of Sparta's goals against Celtic last time out. But he has had problems with injuries this season. Would he be a big relief if Rangers didn't see his name on the team sheet tomorrow night?
Absolutely, because, I mean, any player that's a doubt or indeed unavailable is a massive advantage to Rangers, but it's up to Rangers to go out and make sure that they're not getting over themselves and making sure that they're professional and getting the job done. Because, I mean, as we've alluded to, it probably is a must-win game for Rangers tomorrow night, just to get just more for pride again, because the Lyon display was disappointing. And tomorrow night is about getting a bit of pride back on the European stage for Rangers. And then if they can win tomorrow night, it's massive because it allows them a bit of European momentum to carry on, but also momentum to carry on into domestically as well. But in particular in Europe, it allows a bit of momentum to carry on into the next stage of games, which with the aim by Christmas time for qualifying to last 32 of the Europa League.
Well, as I said at the start of the show, if they won tomorrow night, their next game is at home to Brøndby on the 21st of October, the first of that double header. And David, if they were to pick up the win tomorrow night, or even just get a point tomorrow night, that would feel like a positive result, a step, a foothold, I should say, in the group. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, everybody knows how disappointing the Lyon game was. Yeah, Rangers played okay in stages, but they were nothing magnificent that evening in question. Me and you were very quick to criticise Ryan Kent in that evening in question. Yeah, Kent's injured tomorrow night, but
were they not streetwise enough against Lyon? Do you think? Does that something that
I would agree. Yeah, they weren't streetwise enough. The game management side of it was very poor, and they did very little to sort things out. I mean, they did very little going forward at the back. They were cut open, and don't get me wrong, Lyon's a good side, but there was a lot of accountability not taken into consideration a fortnight ago.
I was having a look at the team that played that match against Lyon, and you talked there about Tavernier and Barisic. They both played. Goldson and Balogun both played at centre half. Do you anticipate those two playing as a partnership at the back, or do you think he might bring in Hollander, for example, to play alongside Goldson?
It's a tough one, to be honest, because I think Goldson and Balogun has the capabilities and the promise to be a fantastic relationship at the back. But I noticed it myself at the weekend when I was watching Rangers that both goals in the Balogun were getting cut open a lot, and they were getting cut open against Griffiths, your McMillans, your Jason Cummings when he came on. I mean, if Dundee had their shooting boots on, it had been 2 or 3 at the weekend, and people will go, what you get on about it? They had the missed penalty, they had McMillan through and goal, they had McMillan taking on the defence, and Rangers didn't show a lot. They weren't proactive enough, in my honest opinion, and Hollander coming in would bring a freshness to this Rangers team because he brings... He's got the capabilities to be a top Rangers defender.
I don't think Leon Balogun's having that bad a season. I thought he was really good, particularly in the Celtic game when he had to fill in at fullback. And, what I like about Balogun is he does, give a good account alongside Goldson. There's an understanding between those two. I think Hollander's a good reader of the game, but maybe lacks that little bit of pace. But I think if you are going to play him, his European credentials and his, eye for the big games, I just wonder, it's going to be an interesting dynamic for Gerrard tomorrow. What happens there?
Although, a very good question, Grant, because Robbie Russell's here saying Hollander's out till December.
Is he? That's a huge blow then. Well, I think they'll have to play with Balogun then. I thought maybe Hollander was only out for a few weeks. Maybe that's been extended then. But one thing that really intrigues me as well, you mentioned that midfield. Do you think maybe they might try and change something a little bit? The last 3 was Lundstrom, Davis, Kamara. Do you think maybe Bakuna might slot in to give himself some game time? What about Roof? Where's he going to play in this? I know he came off the bench against Leon. Do we see him having more of a anticipation in this game?
Well, I think that's a good thing about Rangers, Grant. They've got a lot of strength and depth at this precise moment in time, and that's a good thing. That's a healthy thing from a Rangers point of view because, I mean, if had they not had the strength and depth, we wouldn't be asking these questions, and that's the main thing. I mean, Roof is a massive player for Rangers. He's very good in terms of opening up plays, tenacity to getting the ball, his ability to score goals, also his ability to open up defences can't be questioned. He's an instrumental player for Rangers, and he does what it says in the tin. As for the midfield, I alluded to it with Lundstrom. He's came into a game now. He was fantastic the weekend at Dens, and you've also got Kamara and Davis, Kamara, he'll be...
We haven't mentioned Scott Arfield either, who also has got big European experience and obviously an eye for big goals too.
Oh, absolutely. But I mean, Kamara will be buoyed by his new contract he signed last Wednesday. And you've got obviously Davis that was rested at the weekend, which I think is a precaution for tomorrow night. And you spoke about Scott Arfield, and Scott Arfield has been a big player on the European stage for Rangers over the years. Slavia Prague in the Europa League last year springs to mind, and over there in the Czech Republic, that springs to mind more than anything else because he was terrific. And if I'm not mistaken, I didn't do my homework on this, but if I'm not mistaken, he scored that night, I think. So, yeah, I guess the reason I'm asking these questions is because Steven Gerrard does like to tinker quite a lot with this Rangers team, and that might be to his detriment in some respects because I don't feel, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, so Rangers fans tuning in might want to respond to me on this, but I just feel that with Rangers, we're not really seeing a settled team. We're seeing quite a few players getting changed. We're seeing the system's still the same, but we're seeing lots of players in different positions, particularly in midfield and at the top end of the pitch. We've talked quite a lot about, especially up front. I mentioned there about Roof there. He could have a big part to play tomorrow night for me. I think Hagi has had a super last couple of games. He was a big match winner against Livingston. I think since he's come back from COVID situations and his injuries, he's looked quite good. Scott Wright, I think, can offer something a bit different as well. But I do feel that with this Rangers team, they need to get the balance right. I still think that they're lacking that little bit of composure on the ball and that cohesion. And, for a big game like this, they have to get that right. Well, I wouldn't take with the midfield. I mean, the midfield three is important for tomorrow night because, I mean, in terms of the midfield, they haven't exactly sprung up the right system yet. And Rangers are a long, long way off from where they were last season. Let's not make any claims of that.
Especially at the moment.
But then the question, have they sparked to life yet this season? No, they haven't. Simple as that. I mean, with the exception of the Livingston game, there's not been a lot of games where they've won the games comfortably. And that's got to be a major issue for Steven Gerrard. He'll defend his players in the media every day of the week he wants. But the bottom line is that the Rangers team at the moment in time aren't exactly firing in all cylinders in front of goal. That's got to be a disappointment. And for me, when Ryan Jack returns, that's a massive. That'll be massive for Rangers, because when Ryan Jack returns, it offers a bit of stability and steeliness in the defensive side of things for Rangers. And that's the good thing about Rangers. We've alluded to it with the players there. Because of the amount of players that they have and the amount of players we've spoken about this evening in detail, it raises the questions about who's going to line up, but most importantly, where they're going to line up in the tactical mastermind of Rangers.
Yeah. If Rangers want to win tomorrow night, David, and you're obviously, I'm just hypothetically asking this question, would you be worried for them?
I would be, because I mean, they've got a group where you'd look at and go and say they can go through. They do have the luxury of the Conference League, but Rangers Football Club should be thinking about the Conference League. And tomorrow night would be a big worry if Rangers weren't going to win, because I mean, Rangers, a defeat of Rangers Football Club is like a bit of massive panic, not for the manager to go or anything. It's Glasgow Rangers. We need to win games of football again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Leon are at home to Bromby in the other match in this group. I mean, I think from a Rangers point of view, they obviously have to try and get a positive result tomorrow night, but they'll have half an eye on the other game, because, if Bromby were to get something in France, suddenly that could make that group quite interesting.
Well, you can correct me on this, Grant. Leon Bromby is 8 o'clock, I think. So
no, it's quarter to 6 kickoff.
Okay. Well, that makes
kickoff. I've got the BBC Sport website in front of me here, so it's 17:45 kickoff.
That makes it interesting then, because I mean, if they were different kickoff times,
I think they have to be same kickoff times for I think UEFA set them so that they're both at the same kickoff time. I think it's only in the Champions League where they have the early kickoff times for, I don't know if it's for geographical location or again because of UEFA. So yeah, I think that's a big factor in that. But yeah, I think Rangers do need a positive result tomorrow night. Very quickly, because I don't like to. We'll obviously be talking on tomorrow's show. But what's your feeling on the game? Do you think Rangers can get a result tomorrow night?
I'll give you a prediction wholeheartedly, because obviously the game will kick off by the time we're on tomorrow. So I'm going to go for 1-0 Rangers.
I'm going to go for 1-1. I think Sparta will get a point out of the game. I don't particularly feel convinced about Rangers defensively, and I think they'll concede. Sparta aren't a bad side. I don't think Rangers are clicking into gear, so I'll go 1-1. Well, we're 27 minutes into the show, and a lot of people like to talk about Celtic, so let's talk about them next. They also fell to defeat in their opening match in the Europa League. They are, of course, in Group G. They lost 4-3 against Real Betis in their opening match. I think I said 4-2 earlier on. It was 4-3, wasn't it? Of course, Bayer Leverkusen did beat Ferencvaros 2-1 in their first game. So, again, this feels like a big game, but Celtic, obviously, we know, have a real range of injury problems. They also have a lot of defensive issues. They have confidence issues. This feels like a big game at a wrong time for Ange Postecoglou, don't you think, David?
Every game's a big game right now, as far as Celtic's concerned, because, I mean, they'll be disappointed with the draw against Dundee United on Sunday and then get beat against Livingston the week past before. So tomorrow night's a big game, and yeah, the league's the bread and butter for Celtic, but they'll want to do well in Europe. There's pride at stake for Celtic in Europe. In terms of Celtic in Europe, they've not got off to the best of starts under Ange Postecoglou. I mean, Jablonec was a huge disappointment. Alkmaar in the second leg was a huge disappointment. Midtjylland was a huge disappointment. Jablonec, sorry, I meant to say Midtjylland. Sorry, beg your pardon. Midtjylland and Alkmaar was major disappointments. Apologies, Celtic fans. I'm in a muff here tonight. So they were two disappointments for me, and also the Betis. They missed a lot of players for the game in Spain, but it was another disappointing even as far as Celtic were concerned, because Celtic fans want to win games of football, and that's the bottom line. And I mean, they've got to get the balance right as far as I'm concerned over the next few days. They've got to get the balance right just in the sense of try and get a positive result against a very good Bayer Leverkusen side who, let's remember, before coronavirus, bet a very good Rangers side at Ibrox 3-1. And I mean, they've got a lot of quality players. And Frimpong will be playing tomorrow night.
Patrick Schick, of course, the Scots of the Scotland national team plays for Leverkusen, so we may see him tomorrow night as well.
Is that the vice captain?
That's the striker guy that scored from the halfway line against David Marshall.
Oh shit! I didn't.
He plays for Leverkusen. Yeah, I think that could be interesting to see that dynamic tomorrow night. You've actually come across me because I was going to ask you that in a later question. But I want to talk about Celtic defensively, David, because it's quite clear that Celtic are conceding too many goals. They led 2-0 in Betis, and quite frankly, they kind of lost the plot defensively, and they lost their discipline, didn't they? And in a sort of really strange spell in the game, they shipped 2 very quick goals to lose that 2-0 lead, and then right at the start of the second half, they conceded 2 more goals to fall 2 down. Does Ange need to get that balance right from defence to midfield? I mean, there was a lot of question marks about Ismail Assoro. Will James McCarthy play tomorrow night? But also, what about the centre-backs? Because Starfelt still hasn't convinced me that he's the man in a Celtic shirt. Carter Vickers, we saw at the weekend. I thought should have conceded a penalty against Dundee United. Still looks a bit rash. I think fullback, they still don't look like they've got the balance right. What do we think? Do we think Celtic can get this right?
They can get it right, and they've shown under Ange Postecoglou that they can get it right. It's about getting that balance, Grant. You're right. But what is the balance is the $1 million question right now. I mean, you're looking at Celtic and going, where's the puzzle going to be fixed? Where's the jigsaw going to be fixed? And there's very little answers at this precise moment in time. And I mean, Starfelt has been given a bit of time. I've not been very quick to go and push the panic button on Starfelt, but I think we're understanding right now that Starfelt is getting found out a little bit. And just to clarify, John Rorty, I am very much not in the London bar. It's just what dark blue curtains that I've got in the background there. I'm very much not in the London bar right now. Thank you very much. But no.
So your Del Boy Trotter are going to fall through there.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, major problems defensively. Christopher Julian coming back will really be a huge positive from Celtic because they've lost their system at the back, and that's why teams are getting. That's why they're getting exposed by teams because Dundee did it for themselves on Sunday. Harks did very well to pull in front of the defender and knock the header home, and then Nicky Clark should have had a penalty in. There's now $1 million question with regards to whether Jordan Fuchs should have been sent off on Sunday. There's no footage that I've noticed. Grant, you can correct me here. There's no footage I've noticed to give you a yes or a no to that. But one thing...
I think Fuchs should have been sent off as well, I'll say.
Okay.
That's my opinion. Anyway, go on.
I mean,
question mark for me as well, David. You talked about the centre-backs. But for me, defensive midfield is a real problem for Celtic because James McCarthy, we saw, had that incident with Fuchs. How fit is he? We don't really know if he's up to speed with the game yet. You got Sorrow, looks a little bit of a liability, lacking a bit of discipline. Celtic need guys that are gonna know how to be solid defensively, but also know when to just keep it calm. And, I believe Callum McGregor is not back for tomorrow night. And you kind of question where Celtic go when he's not in the team. Because as you saw at the weekend, it felt like they lacked a little bit of leadership to me.
I'm going to start defensively by saying I've been impressed with Carter Vickers. I think he's done well since arriving on loan. And I'm going to bring up a comment here by Jamie Young saying, and I agree with you, Jamie, I think Scales should be starting for Celtic tomorrow night.
Interesting.
I mean, what's he got to do to get a start? I mean,
it's funny. There's a lot of people in the Republic of Ireland rate Scales. So, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. What's he got to do to get a start? Because, I mean, you look at Starfelt right now and go, is he the answer? Being honest, I think he's got a whole bit of development to do. I would put Scales in an environment of this magnitude. Okay, you're playing Leverkusen, but I put him in, and then you get your proper assessment that way. Then you get to find out if Liam Scales is up to the challenge or not. Not in the sense that he's getting very limited opportunities. Oh, okay, we don't know this player. And yeah, I agree. Scales should be playing tomorrow night.
You mentioned there, Sorry.
I think you're right about McCarthy. I don't think he's got enough energy to last 90 minutes. I mean, we made the point a couple of weeks ago that McGregor's played a lot more games in the last 3 years than in the last few games, than McCarthy's played in the last three years because of injuries and various other things. So that's got to be a worrying thing from Celtic's point of view. Soro, can he fit in? Yeah, but it's about finding the right formula.
I just think that, Celtic have to get that right because we know of Leverkusen's attacking talent. We mentioned it already, Patrick Schick, the Scots of Scotland at Euro 2020. Moussa Diaby has been outstanding for France and been really, really good. You've got the Swiss Gerardo Sione, who I think has been excellent. The manager, very good coach. They're currently second behind Bayer Leverkusen, 4 wins from their opening 6 games. And you mentioned earlier on there, David, about Jeremy Frimpong, and that's what's really interesting for me about this setup because Frimpong coming back to his old team, it just has all the hallmarks of him having a bit of a worldie and being the Scuds of Celtic, doesn't it?
He did very well at Celtic before his move to Bayer Leverkusen.
Were you surprised he went to Germany? I think that was he got 11 million from Celtic. I was really surprised that A, left, but B, Celtic got a decent sum of money for him.
It's a payday for Celtic, let's put it that way. But yeah, Frimpong showed what he was capable of in his last few performances. He's probably a standout in the Celtic team, to be honest, because he left when Celtic were in a poor run of results. And I mean, that's the thing. And he's came into Leverkusen and done very well for himself. And he's transitioned it what is one of the toughest leagues in the world. But one player I want to mention to you, and one player people won't know about, is a guy called Florian Wirtz.
Florian Wirtz, yeah. He made his debut for Germany in the last kind of World Cup qualifiers against Liechtenstein. Yeah, good one.
I mean, his record speaks for itself. 5 goals in 6 games, which just speaks for itself. I mean, as for Wirtz, you might not be familiar with the name Celtic fans, but he's making a kind of explosive impact that can't be ignored for long. I mean, the attacking midfielder for Bayern Munich, he's only 18 years old and he's quickly becoming the talk of European football and has enriched his reputation with slow records. And after just 50 first-team games, he's been touted as a £100 million talent. And Bayern Munich are said to be the head in the levy list of suitors, and that's the thing. If Celtic are going to get a job done, that's probably one player you're going to have to be on and watch tomorrow night. And on to the fact about William Scales, and you find the William Scales argument interesting. I'm pleased to say that's 2 people that have agreed by saying that William Scales should be starting tomorrow night. Just because he offers something a little bit different, but also he offers not experience, but he offers a capability and an exposure to do well alongside Carter Vickers at the back. And for Celtic, there is an experiment side of things, but European football is simply not about experimenting. It's about getting the right balance, because Frank Brennan suggested here, saying the one and only balance that Ange needs to get right is to win games, and nobody could care.
Absolutely agree with that. Completely.
But then the $1 million question we have right now, Frank, and Celtic fans will be the same, is how do you get the right team, the right balance to get results? I mean, it is a results-driven business. And if Ange Postecoglou gets it wrong by playing a 4-4-2 and gets beat 1-0 off for Leverkusen tomorrow night, where we could have all been criticising Postecoglou by saying, why did you not play 4-2-3-1? We'd all be going here saying balance.
Yeah. I think one thing that is interesting is, speaking about balance, having a look at the midfield that played against Dundee United at the weekend, Rogic, McCarthy, Turnbull. Obviously, McCarthy was off half-time, Soro come on. Do you think Ange will keep that 3 of Rogic, Soro and Turnbull for tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Soro's been really good at the European stage for Celtic.
Mainly because he's short of options. I mean, you only have to look at the bench on Sunday. Scales beat on Soro, Bain the goalkeeper, Montgomery, Welsh and Moffat, who's a youngster. So it's not a particularly filled bench of talent. There's not a lot of options there.
Well, I'm not one to comment on Celtic things because me and you aren't Celtic fans, but there's an interesting comment coming in here from Side Sheds Sir Sweets a lot. Very
what
funny name. The current squad is not good enough. Would you agree with that, Grant?
I think To be honest, it is, but I also think that Ange has been quite unlucky with the numerous injuries they've had. You've got guys there that are out of the team that are match winners. Let's be honest, David. Forrest. We haven't even seen Giacomakis yet. I think when he gets fit, I think he'll be a really exciting player. He banged in loads of goals in the Eredivisie. We obviously know about Kyogo, McGregor. They've lost guys like Christian Edward who've moved on. These are big players to lose, whether it's by transfer, whether it's by injury. And, when you look at the Celtic squad, it is like a fridge with very little in it. That's the way I describe it. You're going to the fridge to get food. There's not an awful lot there. You've got things there that you bought and you think, well, I bought it, but I didn't really want it. I ate all the good stuff. There's nothing there. That's how I would describe Celtic at the moment. I mean, what I will say about Celtic. Sorry, Dave. One thing I will say about Celtic is there are guys at the top end of the pitch that are still match winners. Abad has been very good for Celtic this season. I think he was their best player on Sunday. Jota, I think, is getting better every game. I think he probably should have got one goal on Sunday. Ajeti, the jury's still out. I don't think you win leagues or titles or trophies with Ajeti, but he can score a goal or two. He could be a good fill-in, a good substitute while guys are injured. Now, I feel sorry for Ajeti because, he has to deliver, otherwise Celtic fans are on his case. But when he does deliver, Celtic fans are on his case anyway because he's only subbing in because, really, Kyogo is the main man. So I do feel that Ange is tied in that regard because he doesn't have a lot of depth to play with. But at the same time, I think he needs more from certainly his midfield. I think he needs guys like Rogic to step up a little bit more. He needs a bit more from Turnbull. I've not really seen Turnbull do it consistently so far this season. So that's my opinion.
And that's the thing with Rogic and Turnbull. Rogic has been really good and is a different player under Ange Postecoglou, but recently he's not been the player that we know he can be. And the same for Turnbull. I agree with your thoughts on David Turnbull. He's the type of player that could be doing, is capable more and should be doing more. I mean, a fit and firing and an informed David Turnbull is probably one of the best players in the Premiership in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another interesting dynamic is at fullbacks. Obviously Ralston and obviously Juranovic went off injured. Montgomery came in at the weekend. Do you expect Montgomery to start with Ralston tomorrow night? I
mean, there's no reason why.
I don't think Montgomery's done an awful lot wrong, to be fair to the young lad. He's done well since he's come into the team.
Yeah, he's been a good up-and-coming prospect. I mean, he's not exactly got the praise that the other players in the Premiership in this position has got, such as your Calvin Ramsey's in his world. But what you get from Montgomery is consistency, 100%, a fantastic work rate, and that's the thing. If you've got all the three things in combination, you're always on a winner. I mean, from Montgomery's point of view, he hasn't done anything wrong, and I feel he's got a lot to offer to the Celtic side. And what you get from Celtic at this precise moment in time is you're getting a mixture of youth in this team, but you're also getting a mixture of experience. But it's up to the experienced players to look after the younger ones now and go and say, look, we need to do this better. We need to command the area a little bit better. Just little things, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Celtic do need a positive performance more than anything else tomorrow night. But we saw Celtic last season in the Europa League, didn't we? They were comfortably beaten by AC Milan, weren't they, at home in one of their early group games? Remember that we talked about the Sparta double-header. They went to Lille, they led 2-0, they dropped points there. Celtic need a positive performance tomorrow night, don't they, David? The result, I think, in the circumstances, if they want to get out of the group, they obviously need to win the game. But realistically, I think Celtic have a very tough group, and I just think Ange needs a big performance tomorrow night above everything else.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, Grant, and I'll be brutally honest with Ange first and foremost in saying game management late in the European terms leaves a lot to be desired. I've had a few arguments regarding myself about no dig tonight. There's my first dig. I'll bring that right back to you. And the second thing, and I'll include Brendan Rodgers in this when I say this, over the years in Europe for Celtic, since the Neil Lennon days, funnily enough, there's been very little success for Celtic in Europe. They've done well. They've shown a lot of excitement, a lot of promise, but they're very little on the stage.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I think you look at this game tomorrow night. We talked about Leverkusen and what they're capable of doing. But Celtic need that big European night again, don't they? They had the double win against Lazio home and away. That feels like the last big result they had got in Europe to me.
Well, first and foremost, before I answer that question, I sincerely hope the Parkhead lights are back up and running by tomorrow night, because I mean, if you're going to have,
I think Wraith Rovers got that treatment.
Well, they very much that was Rick's point. They very much did. So I very much hope they do the same thing tomorrow night, because they had a fantastic performance last Thursday night.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's have a projected team lineup for the Celtic game. She did it for the Rangers one. What would be your starting 11 tomorrow night? Hart's a goal, of course, isn't he?
Yeah, Hart and goal. Back four. Yeah, back four of Ralston, Carter Vickers, Scales, and Montgomery. Midfield
for
three.
Scales. Interesting. What about, we haven't talked about him today, what about Stephen Welsh? Because there's been a lot of clamour for Stephen Welsh. A lot of people think he's been unfairly dropped. Does he not come into your reckoning to play?
Sorry, I'll change my mind. Ralston, Carter Vickers, Welsh, Scales.
Ooh, you played Scales at fullback. Interesting. Okay.
Midfield three of Rogic, Soro, Turnbull. If they get the system right.
Yeah.
And up front, or the three, Philippe, Ayeti, and Abada.
Yeah, I think the front three picks. So this is the thing, isn't it? I think Celtic's team, because of the lack of depth and the lack of options, kind of picks itself in many ways. Because, as I said, Ange doesn't have a lot of leg room to make kind of changes. And, you know, unless McCarthy has made a miraculous recovery and is fit for tomorrow night, it looks like it is going to be Soro in there. And, you know, it just looks like, you know, Celtic are struggling to kind of think of a different dynamic there. But let's have a prediction on this game. What are we thinking here? I'm going to go 2-1 Leverkusen here.
Okay. Leverkusen keep a clean sheet, 2-0.
We're going 2-0. Celtic fans, you probably will disagree with our thoughts and potentially the scoreline tomorrow night as well. So get us, if they do win tomorrow night, and let us know your thoughts on that as well. Obviously, there's more to talk about than just European action in Scottish football. David, there was major talking points today on a couple of things very quickly as we're coming towards the end of the show. Lee Griffiths charged by the Scottish FA over the flare kicking incident last week in that Scottish League Cup match against St Johnstone. Your reaction to that news?
Thank you very much, first and foremost, for not mentioning that Premier Sports Word. Much appreciated. But anyway, on to the point. I mean, the full charge will come as of the 14th of October. That's the final line. That's the full stop here. But we discussed this last week, Grant. The hot water's got the floor of the league, as far as I'm concerned. And if there isn't, serious questions need to be asked of the SFA, as far as I'm concerned. Because I mean, yeah, you can't condone a St Johnstone fan that chucked the flare on the pitch in that game in question. Also, Lee Griffiths didn't exactly do himself. He didn't exactly cover himself in glory, because instead of chucking it onto the sideline, he volleyed it 30 yards into the stand. But my question from that point, before we're going back on the original point, there was 4 stewards in the corner that night. None of them did anything, and that's the big thing for me.
And of course, you were there, of course.
And I was tempted to say something last Thursday, but I completely forgot, because obviously I was hosting, so I never got the privilege to explain everything. But back on to your original point, I mean, the kitchen sink's got to be thrown at Lee Griffiths, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, had that happened to a different player in this league, such as, I'm not trying to disrespect players here, but if that happened to Fredo Morelos or any other players that have a fiery character about them, we'd have all been asking for the same repercussions. And what is the repercussions, we might ask? The repercussions is a minimum, I'm going to predict a minimum 5-match ban and a big fine for Lee Griffiths. Yeah.
Well, this is what James Rapay had to say. He says it's an ongoing investigation. It's the process. We've been here before. I've been in this game a long time. Lee can play through it. We'll use him until we know if there is a ban. It's just something we need to deal with. He's apologised, and from the conversations I've had with him, he's okay. What's your reaction to McPake's statement?
He's obviously defended his player, which is a good thing. I mean,
he's kind of boxed into a corner because he has to defend his player, doesn't he? He's kind of left with no choice, even though he probably thinks it was a silly situation.
Well, I mean, Dundee Football Club are furious with what Chris Boyd said in the paper on Saturday, and I can maybe understand why Dundee are a little bit annoyed, but at the same time, Boyd's comments were justified, and because I mean, we can't. You touched upon this last week. I mean, kids will watch what Griffiths did last week and think, okay, that's okay. Right, there's a wee flare there. We'll just kick that 30 yards across the street, will we? Or 30 yards across the stands, will we? When in total reality, it basically isn't. And there needs to be a bit of education as far as we were concerned. I noticed in the comment section last week that we were getting slaughtered when we mentioned education, but I mean, a lot of things get made about.
Is it past that stage now? Because Griffiths has had umpteen chances. I kind of reflected on that at the end of the show, and I was thinking, do you know what? I kind of understand why I said it, but how many chances does this guy want? He's been in situations like this too many times. Why is it not sinking in? Why is it not registering?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing. I mean, people are against him right now, and understandably so. And it's up to Lee Griffiths, the footballer, to respond, but is he going to respond is another question.
Do you see him heading in a similar direction to guys like Derek Riordan, Gary O'Connor, David Goodwillie, dropping down the Scottish leagues, probably into the wilderness?
I think so. I mean, your O'Connors and your Riordans are probably in the wilderness now. I mean, Gary O'Connor's got his own coaching business, I'm led to believe, in Edinburgh. And he's also involved with
But at the time, he had a big opportunity to make it big, and it didn't work out for him. And obviously, we know what's happened with Goodwillie. So, it's not good potential reading for Griffiths. No,
definitely not. And I mean, you alluded to Riordan there. I mean, I don't even know what Derek Riordan's up to nowadays, which just speaks for itself. And as for Riordan, he's running his own coaching business. But apart from that, I know his son plays for the Hibernian youth teams, development teams, on the 21s and all that kind of stuff. But apart from that, he's doing very little. He may be in coaching with Hibernian in terms of youth academy, but apart from that, we're hearing very little about these players in question. And being honest, Lee Griffiths will go into open goal in 9-10 years' time and explain himself. But for now, we're asking loads of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. That story will run and run, as will this story that's come out in the last 5 hours, David. Hearts and Rangers have confirmed fans must show proof of double vaccination this weekend, despite the Scottish Government's grace period over enforcing the certification scheme. System is not being enforced by the Scottish Government until the 18th of October. Your reaction to that news?
I think it's welcome, if I'm being honest with you, Grant, and I'll tell you why I think it's welcome, because it gives the clubs a bit of time to get the right protocols and right contingency plans in place, because this was a bit of a panic from the Scottish Government, and I felt the Scottish Government did the right thing in terms of bringing this or implementing this vaccine certificate thing in place. I mean, the anti-vaccinators out there will disagree under the sun with what I'm saying here, but I mean, everybody. The total reality is everybody will get checked. Everybody will get checked on their phones to ask, have you been double vaccinated? If not, you'll be told, irrespective if you paid £30, £40, £50 for a ticket, all the money in the sun, you'll be told to go back to the pub or indeed back home. And it's going to be a real shame if there's fans that have travelled 3 hours from Glasgow up to Pittodrie on a Saturday and being told you can't go because you're not double vaccinated. But in total truth and in total scientific truth, that is that we need to be cautious, because we are still in a global pandemic and we're very seldom going to be out of one for a very, very, very long time. And for me, the clubs are taking precautions, such as your Hearts and your Rangers, and they're leading the way, because they're using this period before the international weekend to go and say, right, we'll give this game a test. We'll give this game to see if we need to go and work.
I think it's proactive from the clubs. I completely agree.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. There are a few games taking place tonight. We're coming towards the end of the show. There's 3 Women's Premier League 1 games tonight. Hibernian play Hearts in the Edinburgh Derby. I wonder who's going to come out on top there. Motherwell are at home to Celtic and Rangers play Spartans. But David, just get your quick thoughts on the rearranged game in the Championship taking place in just a little under 10 minutes' time. Wraith Rovers against Dunfermline. Of course, this match was abandoned after a floodlight failure in Fife the last time. What do we think? Do we think this is going to be an interesting game? Dunfermline absolutely have to get a win, because they have had a rotten start to the season.
Yeah, well, the farmers were buoyed by the addition of Mark Corley, a loan from Dundee United today. They've just started him in before kickoff, so that'll be a good addition to the farmers. But as for the Rovers, I mean, they did very well, and that's them. They've won 2 games in a row now, so
they've won 3 of the last 4 games. Yeah. Big opportunity for them to close the gap on Arbroath to a point above them, whereas Dunfermline could go off the bottom with a win themselves. So,
and I mean, with the exception of the last 5 minutes at Starks Park on Sunday, the Rovers were dominant, and Parkfield have their say in the game, and were disappointed with a couple of decisions that didn't go their way in the game. But overall, the Rovers were brilliant on Sunday and fully merited their 3 points. And they are a really good side, or an improving side. And I do expect Rafe to come out on top this evening. But you're looking at the Dunfermline side, and Peter Grant was in attendance at Starks Park on Sunday, may I add, with his German, the German guy. Don't ask me what his name is, but they both were in attendance and actually left when Rafe were 3-0 up, in fact. So that just explains itself. But for me, it's promises to be an exciting game, and here's hoping there's a good crowd. I mean, the farmer might get a bit negative if things don't go right, but hopefully it's a good game and a good atmosphere, because the Fife derby is usually a positive encounter between 2 sides that do a lot of good things both on and off the park.
Penultimate question: if Peter Grant doesn't get a result for Dunfermline tonight, is his job at risk?
I think so, and I've got a lot of time for Peter Grant, and I'm gonna hype up yourself here, because he did an interview with yourself at Campbell's Footballs, and it was a very good interview indeed. So in terms of Peter Grant, I hope he turns it around, but for every passing minute and every passing game, it just seems very unlikely. Yeah,
Dunfermline only scored 3 goals in their opening 6 games. Raith have scored 10. It should be an interesting game. Very quickly, last question to you, David. What's your score prediction for this game?
3-1 Raith.
I'm going to go for 2-1 to Raith. I think it'll be quite a good game. I think it might be settled late on. I think Raith might get a last-minute winner. We're coming towards the end of the show. Very last thing, we did talk about the women's games. I mean, some interesting matchups tonight. I mean, the Edinburgh Derby is the one that leaps off the page.
I know you're in a rush tonight, Grant, so I'll just give you my predictions. I'm going to go for Hibs to beat Hearts by 4-0. Rangers to beat Spartans. I'm going to go 3-1. And what was the other game, sorry?
Motherwell Celtic.
I'm going to go 5-0 Celtic.
Yeah, I think Celtic will win 4-5-0 as well. I think Hibs will beat Hearts, but I don't think it'll be as convincing as the 4 you suggested. I think I'll go for maybe 2-1 or 3-1. Actually, I'll go 3-1. And I think Rangers will beat Spartans 2-0. So there was myself and David's thoughts on another extraordinary evening on the State of Scottish Football podcast. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. So do check us out. You can find us, as I said, on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, Instagram, Twitch, you name it. Just check us out. We're here from 6 to 7 every weeknight. Plenty of talking points from the great and the good of Scottish football. I have been Grant Campbell. To the left of me has been, of course, David Smith. We hope you have enjoyed the content tonight. Thanks very much. Please give us a like, a share, a subscribe, wherever you follow us. And do join us next time. Bye for now.